Hello, I am Mokhtar. I'm the founder and CEO of Formal. At Formal, we are helping enterprises implement least privilege at scale. And we are fortunate to help customers like Ramp or Notion out of here, San Francisco.
Awesome. Mokhtar, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So tell me, just to kick it off, tell me a little bit about just the principle of least privilege, just so we can get everybody on the same page.
Yeah, so the principle of least privilege was introduced actually in the 70s. And it's basically this idea that identities, so generally humans, should have access only to what they need for the time that they needed to perform their job, right? And so nothing less, nothing more. And by effectively enforcing least privilege, you make sure that in case that an attacker has access to your system, you decrease the blast radius because they cannot have lateral movement and have access to more stuff and make more damage than they could have been otherwise.
Yeah. So what does that look like in terms of kind of like these new like AI products? Like, what are areas where this is like critically important to get that least privilege solved?
So with least privilege, right, there was this Gartner category that was introduced more than 20 years ago now called privilege access management. And I will say that those softwares tend to be out of fashion, right? Like people started to forget about them. And PAM was not necessarily like the most talking about category. But with AI identities, PAM is actually coming back in full force. And actually you can see it with the recent acquisition from Palo Alto Network or Okta. And the reason why is because in those categories, right, AI agents can perform a lot of different actions.
Yeah.
And you want to make sure that you control those actions and that your AI agents cannot go out of band, right, and out of bounds. And so PAMs effectively enable security teams to enforce the guardrails for AI agents. The problem that we observe today on the market is that most PAM tools are not yet fit to AI agents. And so the question is then, how do you fit PAM software to not only fit human identities, but AI identities as well? And that's our value proposition at Formal, to be able to cover the full spectrum of identities, whether they are humans or AI.
Interesting. So in this, in Formal, like, would each agent have like its own set of privileges to be able to perform a certain task?
Yeah, exactly. Like with Formal, you can create policies to effectively enforce guardrails on like what your AI agents can do, what kind of tool it can call, what kind of MCP servers, what kind of data. I think something that differentiate our product is how granular it is. So you can literally like create row-level policies that enforce that this kind of AI customer support agent, for example, can only see customers' data if there's a ticket in Salesforce or Zendesk that's open for that customers. And Formal will filter any other data to make sure that the AI agent doesn't try to like fetch other customer data on a specific session.
Interesting. So how does a system like that differ from maybe a more kind of like well understood in the web space, at least, system like RBAC?
I mean, RBAC is basically like another principle, right? In terms of like policies and controls you want to put in place. And so Formal does support RBAC, right? But for most website, right, or like web apps, RBAC is well defined, right? You have your app. In your app, you can do those type of actions. With AI agents, it's very different, right? Because you might have a bunch of different MCP servers, like 100 MCP servers with 100 of different tools. And so you really want to make sure that the way that you're enforcing those controls is very strict. And that's where a product like Formal will shine.
Yeah. As we develop these, these strategies, like, do you think it'll be important to like differentiate like, real users versus their like agents? And how do you see that playing out?
That's a good question. I think long term, it's not going to be as important.
Okay.
Because I think that humans and agents will basically blend. And I think it's kind of already what's happening. And so my point of view on the question is the responsibility should be on the systems that you have. And so, for example, if you take coding, right? To be honest, I don't really care if your peer comes from a humans or if Cloud Code written the code. What I care about is, does our peer approval process have guardrails to make sure that bad codes doesn't get merged to production. And bad code can come from humans or AIs. So I don't think those principles change fundamentally. And I don't think that trying to like look at like, oh, this line of code come from an AI agent and this one come from a humans. I think that's a distraction that a lot of companies, like generally like enterprises, are focusing on. What I think what they should focus on is actually making sure that they follow the right security principles and that their basics are covered.
That's a really interesting idea. So the way I understand it is, it doesn't necessarily, we naturally think about it like, oh, this is me, this is my agent. But if the lanes are set up properly and like nothing can kind of exceed its lane, then it kind of matters less because the risk is mitigated by nature of the privileges it has.
Exactly, 100%. And anyway, I don't think there is going to be a way moving forward where you will be able to know exactly the human versus the agent. Like AI is already blended in SaaS products. So like if you're using like the Office suite, right? Or Google Doc or Notion, and those products already embed AI, right? So does it really matter that this line was like suggested by an AI and this line was written by me? No, right?
Yeah.
So it's already too late in many ways.
Yeah. Especially with like integration into our, code editors and like, Claude Desktop now. It's like,
Exactly.
you did it basically. Like you prompted it, but you did it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I wanted to ask you one last thing. How's your experience at Enterprise Ready Conf been?
Wonderful. One word, wonderful. I think it's a very well put together event. I've been very impressed by the attention to details that the Workers team put into that event. And I mean, it transpires already in the product. But one, I think, anecdote is when we went on stage for our panel, the bottles of water were pre-opened because apparently if you open your bottle on stage, there might be too much sounds and noise. And so they were already pre-opened. And they told us that in advance so we don't get...
Like, my water's open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's incredible. It's a great event. And I'm very grateful for being here today.